Hi everyone, and welcome to the video presentation for Module 21. This video is about secondary leading tone chords. So we're going to be defining the term secondary leading tone chord. We're going to work on how to spell secondary leading tone chords according to a Roman numeral, and we'll work on identifying secondary leading tone chords with Roman numerals. So, as you remember, we're talking about secondary function chords, and these are chords that tonicize a particular note or tonicize a particular chord. They treat a note or a chord that is not the tonic chord or tonic note as a temporary tonic. Okay, so the ones we looked at before were the secondary dominant chords, which were the 5 chords of whatever key was being tonicized, or 5/7 of that key being tonicized. They were either major triads or dominant 7th chords, and we wrote them with Roman numerals as 5 of something or 5/7 of something. There's another type of secondary function chords, which are the secondary leading tone chords. And these are the 7 diminished, or 7 fully diminished, or even 7 half diminished of whatever key is being tonicized. So these will be diminished triads, or some kind of diminished 7th chord. We write these as 7 diminished of something, or 7 diminished 7 of something, or you include any kind of numbers that indicate the inversion, things like that. And so the reason they work is because a secondary leading tone chord is the 7 chord, right? The number 7 triad in a key. So it has a dominant function just like a 5 chord does. So they both lead to a particular note. So the sound we're going after is this diminished triad, which sounds like it needs to lead to that note, right? Or you can do it on any other note, and you can do it with the 7th chord. And it's the leading tone triad because it's always built on the leading tone of whatever key or whatever note or whatever chord is being tonicized. So that's what we're going to be thinking about when we're building these secondary leading tone chords, is building a triad or 7th chord on the leading tone, not of the scale that we're in, not of the key we're in, but on whatever note or chord, which is a temporary key, that's being tonicized. So these are the chords we're going to be dealing with today, which are the secondary leading tone chords. So other things to remember about secondary leading tone chords, and I kind of already said some of them, but the secondary leading tone chord is built on the leading tone of the chord or note being tonicized. Chromatic notes are used to make the chord into a diminished triad, a fully diminished 7th, or a half diminished 7th chord, and the chromatic notes will always belong in a key of the chord being tonicized. Okay, here's a key of D major, and normally in the key of D major, D is the tonic. So everything revolves around that tonic note D. So a 5 chord would lead to D. A 7 chord would also lead to D. Those are all the chords that lead to the note D. Okay. Now we can make a tonicization happen. We can tonicize any of these notes in the key of D major, and this time we're going to do it using a leading tone chord. So the first thing you have to figure out is what the leading tone is of the note you're trying to tonicize. So let's say we're going to try to tonicize the E. We're tonicizing the 2 chord. So if we want to build the 7 that leads to E, the leading tone chord that leads to E, we need to build that chord on a D sharp, because D sharp is the leading tone of the key of E. And we know that its leading tones are always diminished, so the F sharp needs to go in that chord, and the A also needs to go in that chord. So we end up with a chord that sounds like this, which wants to lead to this note. Okay, you can do that with any of these notes. So let's say we're going to try to go to the 5 chord. We're going to tonicize 5 in the key of D major. So we want to find what the leading tone of 5 is. Well, 5 is A, so the leading tone will be a half step below that, which will be a G sharp. And we'll make this a 7 fully diminished, this time of 5. So we'll have our G sharp, we'll have our B natural, we'll have our D natural, and we'll add an F natural to make it a fully diminished 7th chord, which leads nicely to B5. So this would be 7 fully diminished 7 of 5. Okay, so the process is always thinking down a leading tone or half step from the note you're trying to tonicize, and including any notes, any chromatic notes that would need to be added to make it a diminished chord, a half diminished 7th chord, or whatever is called for by the Roman numeral. Okay, so they're not really that hard. You just have to think down a half step and then build a diminished triad, build a half diminished 7th chord, or build a fully diminished 7th chord. Okay, so let's look at a few examples of this. Now, in the first set of examples, we're going to be spelling the chord based on the Roman numerals as we practiced with the other kinds of chords. In the second part, we'll be identifying them in a particular key and giving them a Roman numeral for a label. Okay, so F major, we want to start with our key signature, so adding in the key signature of 1 flat. Now we're trying to spell a 7 diminished of 5. So we're trying to tonicize the note C because C is 5 in the key of F. So then what is the leading tone of C? Well, what's a half step below C? Half step below C is B. So the root of my chord is going to be a B. And this says it's a diminished, and there's no numbers next to it. So this is going to just be a diminished triad. So the chord we need to spell is a B diminished triad. So it'll be B natural, D, and then F. I'll actually write that as an F. Which leads to a 5 in the key of F, which is C. So this is our 7 diminished of 5, our leading tone chord of 5. Okay, our next one is in the key of E minor, so I'll add my 1 sharp for that key signature. And we're trying to tonicize the chord 4 in the key of E minor. And so 4 in the key of E minor will be A minor. So we need to find the leading tone chord for the key of A minor. So think about the note A, that's what we're trying to tonicize. The leading tone of A, a half step below A, is G sharp. So this chord will have a root of G sharp. And it's asking for a fully diminished 7th chord. So we're going to need to spell a G sharp fully diminished 7th chord in order for it to be a 7 fully diminished of 4, 7 fully diminished of A minor. Okay, so we'll add our G sharp first. That's going to be our root, also our bass, since this is root position. Then we want to add whatever is a minor third above that, which is B. Another minor third above that is D. And another minor third above that is going to be F natural, which gives us our fully diminished 7th chord of A minor of 4 in the key of E. Okay, one more of these. This is the key of G major, so I'll add the same key signature, 1 sharp. We're looking for the 7 diminished for 3, so this will be a fully diminished 7th chord of 3. So the 3 in the key of G is going to be the note B, and it's lowercase, so it's B minor. So the chord we're trying to tonicize, the key we're trying to tonicize is B minor. So we have to find the leading tone of B minor. So the note that is a half step below B is A sharp. So A sharp will be the root of my chord, and it wants a fully diminished 7th chord again, but now it wants a 4-3. So that means that the 5th of the chord will be on the bottom of this. So the chord A sharp fully diminished should have A sharp, C sharp, E, and then G. And the note that should be on the bottom, since this is in 4-3 position, is going to be the 5th of the chord. So my bass note is going to be E, so I'll add that in. Then I want to add the rest of my notes that I wrote out there. That'll be G, and then we'll have our A sharp. That's the root of our chord. And then we'll have C sharp. That'll be the 3rd of our chord. So we end up with this chord, which leads to 3 in the key of G, which is B. So this is our 7 fully diminished 4/3 of 3. Okay. Now in these next couple, we have to figure out what the chord is and then identify it in the particular key that they want you to identify it in. So the first thing you always want to do is put it in root position. So we will notice that this is not in root position. So we'll take that top note and move it down an octave. So we end up with a chord that is F sharp, A, and then C. And then I notice that I have F sharp to A as a minor third, A to C as a minor third, so this is going to be a diminished chord. Since F sharp is the root, this is an F sharp diminished chord. And it's not in root position, so we should also say that it's over A. And in terms of the Roman numeral, this means this is going to be a 7 of something, 7 diminished of something. And since it's in first inversion, we say it's a 7 diminished 6 of something. So we need to figure out what that something is. Well, this is a diminished triad with an accidental in it, chromatic diminished chord. So this is a leading tone secondary function chord. So F sharp is the leading tone. So we're thinking in reverse. It's the leading tone of G. So this is the 7 of the key of G, and in the key of B flat, G is the 6th note, so this is going to be a 7 diminished in first inversion of 6, which is actually going to be capital because 6 is always, oh, I had that right the first time. It's going to be lowercase because 6 is a minor triad. So the answer for this is 7 diminished 6 of 6. Okay, one more, we have the key of A major. Again, you want to always put these in root position first if they aren't already. We look at it and we notice that it is not a nice snowman. It is needs to be rearranged so that it is. So the best way to do that is take that C sharp, put it on the bottom. So we'll have C sharp, we'll have E next, we'll have G natural next, and then we'll have a B. So this is going to be a C sharp chord, since C sharp is on the bottom now and it's in root position. It looks diminished to me, but let's check. So we have C sharp to E is a minor third. E to G is a minor third. G to B actually is a major third. And C sharp to B is also a minor seventh. So this is actually a half diminished seventh chord. So this is C sharp, half diminished, 7. And we know in the original arrangement of that chord, it's over the note E. So in terms of the Roman numeral, this will be in first inversion. So 7 half diminished 6/5. Since it's a seventh chord in first inversion, we give it 6/5 of something. So we need to figure out what that of is. And since this is a leading tone chord, that means the root is the leading tone of whatever key is being tonicized. So that means that we have to think up a half step from C sharp, which is the note D. And what is D in the key of A? That's going to be a 4 chord. So this is a 7 half diminished 6/5 of 4. And there you go. That's all there is to it. These are, I think, a little bit easier than secondary dominants. The tough thing is just remembering if you have to spell a diminished triad, a fully diminished 7, or a half diminished 7. And we'll always tell you what you need to do. Other than that, it's just a matter of thinking up or down a whole step, or up or down a half step, since we are always trying to find the leading tone or find the chord that the leading tone is going to. So just know your minor seconds, know your half steps, and you'll be good. We'll be doing more of this later. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.